The possibility of the New England Patriots moving on from Christian Barmore is no longer just a random offseason rumor. It's a real discussion happening around this team, and it carries major implications for the future of this defense. When you look at everything surrounding Barmore right now, both on and off the field, you start to understand why this conversation even exists. Christian Barmore is 26 years old and has been a key piece of this defense since 2021. On talent alone, he is one of the most disruptive interior defensive linemen in the NFL. This past season, he finished with 29 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, and 50 total pressures. His pass rush grade of 69.1 was among the best at his position, and he ranked 7th in pass rush win rate. When quarterbacks dropped back, Barmore was a constant presence collapsing the pocket. From a pure interior pass rushing standpoint, he remained elite. But the production also tells another story. Only 2 sacks. And when you compare that to Milton Williams, who posted 4.5 sacks, it becomes clear that Williams was more productive finishing plays. The Patriots' nickel-heavy defensive scheme thrives on interior disruption, and the Barmore-Milton-Williams duo has been a true two-headed monster. Offenses can't double-team both. If they slide protection to one, the other wins. That balance has been a massive strength. However, this offseason is about more than just performance. Financially, the Patriots have a decision to make. Barmore's base salary sits at $12 million with a cap hit of $17.1 million. If the team opts into his contract by the March 14th deadline, that number jumps to $20 million. That is significant money. There is an out in his contract this offseason. If the Patriots were to move on, especially with a post-June 1st designation, they could save substantial cap space, potentially around $13 million in a trade scenario. And then there's the off-field situation. On New Year's Eve, according to court documents out of Attleboro District Court, Barmore was charged with assault and battery related to a domestic incident. His arraignment is scheduled for March 9th, just days before free agency opens, and just days before the Patriots must make a contract decision. The outcome of that legal situation could heavily influence what the organization does. If he is proven innocent, that's one conversation. If he is proven guilty, it becomes a completely different one. There were also on-field disciplinary moments during the season. At one point in the middle of the year, he was benched for a quarter. When asked about it, Barmore downplayed it, saying it happened and they were moving on. Head coach Mike Vrabel made it clear it was about not being the right type of person in that moment. Vrabel is known as a no-nonsense coach. Accountability matters, culture matters, so now the Patriots face a layered decision: keep an elite interior pass rusher who forms arguably one of the best defensive tackle duos in football with Milton Williams, or move on, save money, possibly get draft capital, and redirect resources toward improving the edge. If they did move on, the depth isn't empty. Hughes Tunga, who had a strong 2025 season and is a pending free agent, could be re-signed. Jeremiah Farms Jr. is in the rotation. Leonard Taylor Jr., who blocked the game-winning field goal against the Denver Broncos, has flashed upside. Corey Durden has developed into a reliable depth piece. Joshua Farmer is also part of the interior mix. That's 5 defensive tackles behind Milton Williams, who are significantly cheaper options. They may not replicate Barmore's production individually, but collectively, they could stabilize the position. There's also the strategic angle. If the Patriots want to prioritize edge improvement, and that's been suggested, freeing up cap space could open doors. Big trades require flexibility. Major free agent additions require flexibility. Moving Barmore would create that, but breaking up the Barmore and Milton Williams duo is not a small move. When both are healthy and locked in, the Patriots' interior becomes a wall against the run and a nightmare in pass protection. Once Milton Williams dealt with his ankle injury, the run defense noticeably slipped, with opponents consistently pushing past 70 rushing yards. That interior dominance matters. Right now, the Patriots are staring at a crossroads. Talent versus financial flexibility, production versus discipline concerns, stability versus change. So here's the real question for you. Knowing the contract numbers, the legal uncertainty, the depth behind him, and the impact he brings as an interior pass rusher, would you keep Christian Barmore for next season, or is this the moment to move on? And this is where the decision becomes even more complicated, because it's not just about replacing Christian Barmore, it's about understanding what his presence truly does to the identity of this defense and how much risk the organization is willing to accept moving forward. When you look at what Barmore brings snap after snap, it goes beyond basic statistics. The 50 total pressures he generated last season tell you everything about his influence. Interior pressure is one of the most valuable assets a defense can have. Edge rushers are important, but pressure straight up the middle collapses the pocket instantly. It forces quarterbacks off their spot before plays can even develop. it disrupts timing, it creates mistakes, and Barmore has been one of the Patriots' most consistent players in that role. Even in games where he didn't record sacks, his presence was felt. Offensive lines had to account for him constantly. That attention created opportunities for others, especially Milton Williams. This is why the duo worked so well. Offenses couldn't neutralize both players at the same time. It created balance, it created chaos for opposing quarterbacks, and it allowed the Patriots' defensive system to function at a higher level. But the Patriots also have to think about sustainability. This roster is evolving. Mike Vrabel's leadership signals a culture-first approach. Discipline, accountability, consistency. Those things matter deeply. And when there are off-field questions and disciplinary moments during the season, organizations take that seriously. Not just because of public perception, but because of locker room standards. Then there's the financial timeline. March 9th is the arraignment. March 14th is the contract decision deadline. Those dates are incredibly close together. The Patriots may not have full clarity before they must decide. That uncertainty alone adds pressure. Do you commit $20 million to a player while major questions still exist? Or do you protect the team financially and structurally? And here's where strategy comes into play. If the Patriots were to explore a trade, they could potentially receive valuable draft capital in return. They bring cost-controlled talent, they create flexibility, and flexibility is everything in today's NFL. At the same time, replacing elite interior pressure is not easy. Players like Barmore don't grow on trees. You can rotate depth pieces like Hughes, Tonga, Jeremiah Farms Jr., Leonard Taylor Jr., Corey Durden, and Joshua Farmer, but none of them have proven they can consistently produce at Barmore's level. They can contribute, they can support the rotation, but commanding double teams, collapsing pockets consistently, that's different, and that's the gamble. Moving on from Barmore would be a bet on development, a bet on culture, a bet on financial flexibility, but keeping him would be a bet on elite talent, a bet that he continues to produce, a bet that stability on the defensive interior remains one of the team's biggest strengths. This decision will also signal what direction the Patriots want to go. Are they prioritizing maintaining a dominant defensive core, or are they preparing for broader roster restructuring? Because moves like this don't happen in isolation. They connect to everything else: free agency, draft strategy, cap management, and long-term team identity. There's also the reality that Vrabel and the front office may believe they can maintain defensive strength even without Barmore. They may trust their depth, they may trust their development pipeline, they may believe Milton Williams is ready to fully anchor the interior as the clear leader. But losing Barmore would change the equation. It would change how offenses prepare. It would change how protections are set. It would change how this defense attacks quarterbacks. This is one of those moments that defines an offseason, one of those decisions that fans will look back on months later and say it was either the right move or a massive missed opportunity. Because if Barmore stays, this defensive line remains one of the most dangerous interior units in the league. But if he leaves, it opens a completely new chapter, one built on flexibility, youth, and a shift in defensive structure. What makes this situation even more intense is the timing in relation to everything else the New England Patriots are trying to build right now. This isn't just about one player. This is about the foundation of the defense and how confident the organization is in its current trajectory. When a team has a dominant interior defensive lineman, it changes the math for the entire defensive scheme. Defensive coordinators can be more aggressive, linebackers have cleaner lanes, edge rushers get more one-on-one opportunities. The secondary benefits, because quarterbacks don't have time to let deeper roots develop. Christian Barmore has been at the center of that chain reaction. His ability to generate pressure quickly has allowed the Patriots defense to function with speed and confidence. But if you remove him, everything shifts. Now Milton Williams becomes the primary focus of opposing offensive lines. He becomes the one drawing double teams consistently. That affects his production. It affects the pressure rate. And suddenly, the defense has to adjust structurally. Younger players are forced into larger roles earlier than expected. Rotational players must become full-time impact contributors. At the same time, this could also be seen as an opportunity. This is how teams evolve. This is how new leaders emerge. If the Patriots truly believe in players like Leonard Taylor Jr. and Hughes Tonga, this could be their moment to step forward and prove they belong at the center of this defense long term. It would also signal that the Patriots are confident in their scouting, their development, and their system. Another factor that cannot be ignored is how the locker room responds. Players notice these decisions. They see whether performance outweighs off-field concerns. They see whether financial strategy outweighs continuity. Every move sends a message, whether intentional or not. Keeping Barmore would signal commitment to elite talent and continuity. Moving on would signal a focus on culture, financial flexibility, and possibly a longer-term rebuild of the defensive identity. And And then there's the fan perspective. Patriots fans have watched Barmore develop from a young player with raw talent into one of the most disruptive interior defenders on the roster. They've seen his flashes of dominance. They've seen games where he completely changed the tone of the defensive front. Losing a player like that isn't just a roster move, it's an emotional shift for the fan base as well. But the front office has to balance emotion with reality. They have to project forward. They have to anticipate how this roster will look, not just next season, but 2 or 3 seasons from now. They have to decide whether Christian Barmore is part of that future or whether this is the right moment to pivot, because once a move like this happens, there's no going back. If they keep him and he returns to elite production with no further issues, it strengthens the defense and validates their trust. But if they move on and the defense regresses, it becomes one of the defining what-if moments of this era. This is the kind of decision that shapes franchises. And right now, the Patriots are standing directly in front of it. And when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, this decision becomes even more significant because of where the Patriots are as a franchise right now. This is not a team that can afford to make careless mistakes with elite talent. Every major roster decision carries extra weight because it influences whether this team continues to climb back into true contention or takes a step backward. Christian Barmore represents something extremely valuable in today's NFL interior disruption that offenses cannot easily neutralize. Edge rushers often get the headlines, but interior pressure is what breaks offensive structure. When pressure comes straight through the middle, quarterbacks cannot step up. They cannot escape cleanly. They cannot execute plays the way they are designed. Barmore has been one of the few players on this defense capable of creating that kind of consistent disruption. At the same time, the Patriots have quietly built depth for this exact kind of situation. Players like Q's Tonga have proven they can contribute meaningful snaps. Leonard Taylor Jr. has already shown his ability to step up in critical moments, including making a game-changing play by blocking a field goal in a clutch situation. Corey Durden has grown into a dependable rotational piece. Jeremiah Farms Jr. and Joshua Farmer add further support. These aren't just random names on a roster. These are players the coaching staff has invested in developing. But there is a major difference between having depth and having a true game changer. Depth can maintain stability. Game changers create advantages. Barmore has been that advantage. Financially, the Patriots know that every dollar matters. Cap flexibility determines whether you can make aggressive moves elsewhere, whether it's reinforcing the edge, strengthening other defensive areas, or positioning the roster for future acquisitions. Freeing up cap space creates options, and options are powerful. However, moving on from Barmore would also introduce risk. There is no guarantee that his replacement, whether internal or external, would produce at the same level. There is no guarantee that the defense would maintain its current effectiveness without him. And once a player with his level of ability leaves, replacing that impact is never simple. This is the balancing act the Patriots are facing. Talent versus flexibility, proven